Schoolcraft College and the Schoolcraft College Foundation are extremely proud to host internationally renowned author and speaker and thought strategist Heather McGowan, presenting the topic Rethinking Workforce Development, the Future of Work in Education. The presentation Ms. McGowan is about to share addresses issues that are concerning to community and business leaders in Southeast Michigan, as well as our entire state. As a futurist, she is conveying a crucial message regarding the problems we face, along with viable suggestions as to how we as a community can develop necessary solutions. Lifelong learning is the key to addressing issues that are having an adverse effect on businesses and industry. It is the backbone for establishing and maintaining a workforce ready to create a future of growth and prosperity in all of Michigan. The college takes great pride in being a part of the solution, offering to students of all ages the opportunity to advance to certification programs or associate degrees that prepare them for sustainable careers or the foundation required to transition to a bachelor or higher degrees. Schoolcraft has always believed in being a center for lifelong learning. We are prepared to take our place in assisting Michigan to continue its renaissance. Since education is key to the solution, Schoolcraft and our fellow community colleges and universities are positioned to offer a brighter future.
I'm Dawn Magretta, and I'm the Executive Director of the Schoolcraft College Foundation. I'm thrilled that we're able to do this. We're a small foundation, but it's important that we invest in this convening to move workforce development and the future of work and education forward. Welcome to those of us who are viewing live through Detroit Public Television's live feed. Welcome to you as well. I'd like to also, before we get started in the formal presentation, thank some people who have really stepped up and helped us. Dan West in the Livonia Chamber, thank you. The staff here at Vista Tech Center and the media department who have been very flexible as we've decided to go live with this event. The Council of Michigan Foundations and Deborah McKeon, who has stepped up and brought Heather to a conference in October where we learned about this topic and some of the things that we felt was important to bring to business, foundations, the community here in Southeast Michigan. I'd like to introduce our Board of Trustees who are present. Joan Gebhardt. Thank you. And Dylan Breen. Dylan, I don't know if you're here yet. You might still be in the line to come in, but thank you for coming. I'd like to introduce the Foundation Board who really supported this effort in several ways. Julie Kerrigan, the President. Ryan Jenner, our Vice President. Jim Fausone. Gary Gable is one of our Board Emeritus members. Jeff McCarthy, our immediate past President and current Treasurer. Dan Paulson. And I think I have everybody, all of our board members that are present today. I'd also like to especially introduce Lynn Coburn and Stuart Baker. They are this event co-chairs and really put a lot of work and advice and counsel and volunteer work into this event today. So thank you. I'd also like to introduce some of the committee members who are here: Amy Jones, Rob Ludley, Dan West, Vaughn Wynn, the Schoolcraft Foundation team, and did I miss anybody that was on that team? I don't think so. Stacy Stover. Stacy is key with our K through 12 partners. So thank you. And Cheryl Hawkins, one of the President Council members. Cheryl is our Chief Academic Officer, and Laura Sensing, another President's Council member, our Vice President of Human Resources. So thank you for coming and supporting this as well. I'd like to ask table hosts, if you're here, please stand up. All of these people have volunteered to help out with any discussions at the table. And we've left some time at the end of the agenda for that. We want to get you involved. You know, this is an important convening, but we also want to get some input, ideas, and some feedback on where we go from here. At your table, we have index cards and pens for questions. If you can, as you go through Heather's program and the panel discussion, or if you have burning questions on this topic, please write them down on the index cards and give them to your table host. The table host will then bring those questions up during the introduction of the panel. At the end, hopefully by the time you get back to your office, there will be a survey to get some more thoughts and ideas on next steps. So I think that is all the housekeeping pieces for this morning. We hope you will really enjoy it. It's an exciting topic, obviously. When we got together as a committee, we thought a success would be 100 people. So we didn't push this out to the general public. We did it by invitation only through our networks. And obviously, we have just under 300 people that have registered for this. So it's a bigger success than what we thought. So it's important, and we are so excited that you're all here to join this. Kathleen Guy, I'd like to introduce prior to, so we don't have to interrupt the program. She will be today's moderator. And Kathleen Guy, can you stand? She is the founding partner of Eaton Cummings Group, a nationally known consulting firm specializing in strategic planning and fundraising counsel for community colleges and other nonprofits. Her experience includes a 33-year career in community college advancement, mostly at Northwestern Michigan College in Traverse City. She's known nationally. She has taught at the university level, including the doctorate in community college leadership program at Ferris State University. So Kathleen is really well known in the community college arena and will moderate, I think, very well. I think you'll enjoy it. At this point, I will turn the podium over to Dr. Conway Jeffress, the president of Schoolcraft College. Dr. Jeffress.
Did you hear all that rumbling when I walked up here? I've got to lose some weight, God. It's good to see you all this morning, and it's a real pleasure to have you here. This is a convening of people who all have an interest in the workforce. Some of us who are in the field of education are producers of talent, and those of you who have companies or businesses of one sort or another are the consumers of talent. And so we all have a sense of the shortfall of where talent is, especially in the state of Michigan. I received yesterday, I think, from Detroit Public Television. I'm going to use their call letters because I'm old-fashioned. It's WTVS. I somehow feel if you don't say those letters, you haven't identified the station. But at any rate, received some publication from them indicating some interesting numbers, that here in Southeast Michigan, there are 55,000 unfilled jobs. And these are not jobs that are, first guy in the McDonald's line. These are good jobs with good pay. And we see these jobs going unfilled, and it means that we as producers of talent have not done our jobs in trying to get these people to be interested in those positions and to seek employment with your companies. In addition to that fact, I found a couple of other things that were interesting as well. There are 124,000 people in Southeast Michigan who have some college but have not completed their degree. So for those jobs that require some sort of degree, you have potentially a talent pool of 124,000 people who have not been touched or cannot be touched at this particular point in time. And there was another fact on that sheet that I found very interesting. All of us think about college students, and especially if you think about community colleges, you're thinking about people who are 18 years old, 17 years old, and what have you. But those are not really what the college population is all about. 74% of non-traditional students fit in one of these categories. 1 in 5 is at least 30 years old. So they have a little mileage on them. Not like me, I'm, 412, but anyway, half of them are financially independent from their parents. 1 in 4 is caring for a child, which means that there are possibilities that they have other things to do other than come to class. So that's what you have to take into consideration for both training and employment. 47% go to school part-time, and for our business in particular, 2 out of the 5 attend a community college or either actively or have done so. So there, in spite of the fact you hear that the pool of available students is shrinking in Michigan, and it is, partially related to birth rate, I have this thing that I do to encourage an increased birth rate, but you don't want to see it. At any rate, what we have today is a convening of folks here, employers, educators, and others who will get some wisdom from Heather McGowan, who is a futurist. And Heather will share some of her insights with us. We, as part of the community college group, and I say this not just for community colleges, but for universities as well, and to some extent you have to look at the K-12 environment too. A lot of attitudes about work and what work is valuable are formed very early, 7th grade, 8th grade, and really become the province of parents as opposed to those of us who are allegedly in charge. There are kids that are being shaped into opinions about work and work ethic that really are problematic for all of us. I love every now and again to have someone come to seek employment, and the first thing they want to talk about is the number of days off. And I say, you can have them all off, Anyway. So we're hoping that this group, when we get finished here today, will have some thoughts about not only the nature of work right now, the jobs that are available right now, but those jobs that are available in the future. And will they look the same? Will the people have the same skill sets? Will they do the same things? Will they be in the same places? Will they come to work versus stay at home versus be on a computer, be somewhere else? Anyway, all of those questions need to be churned, because all of us have a sense of a future. This is our business. It's right now, yes, but it's also future. We need to know what we're going to do next week, next year, the next decade. And so for that reason, I'm hoping that when this session is done this morning, we will all have some solid questions to share with each other and to share with Kathleen. So I want to stop at this point and have Kathleen return, and I shall lightly tumble down the stairs. Okay?
I thought you were going to make a comment about the earth rumbling as the president addresses the podium. Thank you, Dr. Jeffress. It's an honor to have the opportunity to introduce our keynote speaker this morning, Heather McGowan. She's an internationally known speaker, writer, and thought strategist. She prepares leaders to react to rapid and disruptive changes in education, work, and society. As a future of work strategist, Heather has worked with diverse teams to address these challenges, recognizing that business innovation begins with education, specifically learning faster than your competition. She has worked with university presidents and corporate human resource managers to prepare both graduates and workers for jobs that do not yet exist. She's often quoted in the media, notably by New York Times columnist author Thomas Friedman, for her thought leadership in the future of work. Now is a crucial time to look at what is needed to ensure Michigan has a relevant talent pipeline long into the future. Her think tank is called Work to Learn because Ms. McGowan believes that in the third industrial revolution, we learned in order to work. Now, in the fourth industrial revolution, we will work in order to learn continuously. Please help me welcome Heather McGowan.
Thank you, Kathleen. Good morning. Can you guys all hear me? Am I loud enough? Dawn? Can you hear me now? Good? Good morning. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you to the Schoolcraft Foundation for hosting this event and for Detroit Public TV for carrying it so we can have this conversation with many more people. I sort of stumbled into this work because I was working in higher ed for about a decade. At the same time, I was doing some work in corporate. So I say I had a foot in both camps. And I noticed those feet were getting further apart, and it became a bit of a split. And I realized that the people out there who were talking about the future work really had a dystopian view that the robots were coming, and that we should all be in fear of them. And I saw things really differently. I started explaining it. And then people started reading what I was writing, seeing some of my talks on YouTube, and it went viral, and now this is all I do for a living. So in the next 25 minutes, I'm going to walk you through about 50 frameworks really quickly to try to explain to you how I see this future work and how I see you all in it. So I'm going to start with my future work thesis. Then I'm going to move into quick macro context so you can understand some of the changes taking place. Then what do those changes mean for humans? Because at the end of the day, we're workers, but we're humans first. How those changes are changing work. And then my question in education is, what are we really doing? And I think it's time to ask what we're doing right now. And then sort of my thesis on why it's work to learn, and then I'll summarize. So my future work thesis, I believe three things. I believe the future of work is learning and adapting. And that learning and adapting isn't about codifying and transferring new skills into humans. And it's not all about lunging at coding or technical digital skills. Digital skills and data literacies are really important, but it's about learning how to learn so you can learn continuously. And in order to do that, I think we're looking at the wrong stuff. I think we have to start with identity, then we have to build mindsets for learning, and then we have to look at enablers. And enablers to me are uniquely human skills that make you better at what you do. Some people use the term soft skills. I don't, because that was created when hard skills were what men did, math and science, and soft skills were what women did. And I don't think gendering this helps any of us. So my kind of overarching thesis is that life existed in three bands. First you had education, then you had career, then you had retire. Whether you went to university or not, education was that first third of your life. And the only job of education was to get you on the career ladder, get you on that escalator. You collected a pension, and then by design, you died a year later. That worked when it worked. It doesn't work anymore. The success measures for education really were to be codify and transfer those right skills into people to get you on that career ladder, to give you the right existing knowledge. Now I think it looks like this. Life expectancy is not 90 yet, but it will be soon. Education becomes learning because education to me implies an end state of being educated, and learning there is no end state. Career becomes leverage to signal that work and learning are the same thing, so it's leverage of that learning. And then acknowledging that humans are living a whole lot longer, retirement really becomes longevity, and how do we deal with longevity? So it looks more like this. That career ladder becomes a web. Luke Glazier says it's rock climbing. I've heard other people describe it as surfing. Later in life, we remain engaged. My parents, who are watching this, retired at 57. They got bored. My mother started a company at 65. She's 75, assessing now whether or not she'll retire at 80 or keep going. Right now, 4.4% of the workforce over 85, and that's not just Ruth Bader Ginsburg, are in the workforce. It's the highest percentage of people we've had in the workforce. At the same time, on the lower end, we have the lowest number of young people we've ever had in the workforce since the 1970s. And there are real implications of that because they're not getting the tacit knowledge that they need. Success measures in this world are, have we built resilient and adaptive identities? Have we built agile learning mindsets? Have we helped them develop those critical enablers so that they can learn continuously and add and delete skills like we add and delete applications on our phone? So I think one of the big shifts is occupational. So in the past, we learned in order to work. And we learned once in order to work. And now we must work in order to learn continuously. And in that past, our identity was bestowed upon us. So your identity was the job you had, the union you belonged to, the school you went to. That was how you defined yourself. When that happens, that also can be taken away from you. And now I think we need to go into more of a self-actualized, is a little kind of a fancy word for it, but some sort of internally bestowed identity, where our identity isn't beholden to anyone who can take it away. So Age of Accelerations, this is giving us the macro context of some of the things that are taking place in the world. Here I defer to my friend and mentor, Thomas Friedman, who I've had the good fortune of crossing paths with. He says we're in the middle of 3 simultaneous climate changes at once. First, it's the climate of technology. This is Moore's Law. Moore's Law basically says that every 18 to 24 months, computer chips double in capacity and drop in price. So an easy way to understand this is on the 50th anniversary of Moore's Law, they calculated what that could mean in a way we'd understand. And they took a 1971 Volkswagen Beetle, that happens to be the year I was born, and they said if that Volkswagen Beetle carried the same trajectory as Moore's Law, it would go 200,000 miles an hour, get 2 million miles a gallon, and cost 4 cents. That's the amount of technological innovation that's happened in my lifetime. The second climate change is the climate of the climate. The UN says we have 12 years to change our behavior. NASA said, I think it was yesterday, last year we had the 4th hottest year on record, and all 4 of those were in the last 18 years. We have a short period of time to change our behaviors. And the impact already is we're seeing unprecedented wildfires, floods, superstorms, and droughts. This is causing massive human migration. And then the third climate change is the climate of the market. And this used to be stuff on shipping containers, and we had trade wars. It's now digital flows. There's nothing to stop digital flows. There's no friction in digital flows. So 2 examples. One, when Obama went into Cuba to open the embassy there, 3 months later they had 3,000 Airbnb listings. We couldn't build hotels that quickly. Right now, the top 10 populations in the world, can you guess what they are? Audience participation? Anybody? Shout it out. China, yes. India, yes. No third? Brazil. No, okay, you're right, because the top 10 populations, only 2 of them are countries. The rest of them are social media platforms. Facebook, Google, YouTube, Tencent, and all of it happened in the last 5 years. That's the speed of change. Tom says these 3 climate changes are reshaping our world across 5 dimensions. He works in the world of politics. I'm not going to get into politics, but the 5 dimensions are work and learning, lifelong learning, and adaptation is a must. Politics, no more left and right. Geopolitics, our enemies and our allies are now shifting. Community, it's ideology over geography. We now spend in the developed world 51% of our time online, which means we're spending more time not with our neighbors, but with people who have the same ideas we do. Ethics, we need new guardrails, whether it's driverless cars or what AI does or how an AI system reads an application. So I focus my attention on the work and learning piece, but I think it's important to keep all the 5 dimensions in mind. So what does this change mean for humans? So we've got this unprecedented technological change that's growing exponentially. And at the same time, we're living longer. So if you were born in 1750, you could expect to live to 37 years. The steam engine came out. You had 2.5 generations to absorb that change. Now, we're going to have so many changes that you're going to have multiple paradigm shifts within a single generation. And humans are not ready to adapt to that level of change, and I don't think we're giving enough empathy for some people who are dealing with it. So after one of my talks, somebody came up to me and started crying, and then somebody else came up to me and started crying. And I thought, wow, I didn't think this is a really bummer talk. So what's really going on? And I realized humans are under tremendous stress, some more than others. And people are feeling a little lost. And I was trying to figure out why. Is it just technology? Is it just the speed of technology that's freaking people out, the fear of displacement? And I realized that the only thing moving faster than technology is culture. And there are 3 questions that, some of them are internal monologues, the things we ask and answer for ourselves. Some of them are part of our sort of socialized dialogues. And they are basically, who are you? What do you do? And where are you from? I think those 3 questions are really changing when you think about them. So I started making a list. I started making a list of things that either have changed or are on the cusp of changing in real fundamental ways. Racially, we are going from a white majority to a white minority. That makes a lot of people really uncomfortable. Religion, we have been a Judeo-Christian norm, and let's face it, it's a really Christian norm. We could say Merry Christmas to anybody without really regarding what their religion may be. In 2015, Harvard entered its first entry class with more atheists than Christians in its entire history. So we're seeing more, not only diversity of religion, but also absence of religion. Age. We've been a youth to middle-aged culture. That's what our whole advertising industry is. Now we're becoming an aging society. In 2027, 2030, about then, we'll have more people over 65 than under 14. Family. For the longest time, it was mom and dad and 2.5 kids. Birth rate's changing. As a middle child, I am now extinct. We're losing our middle children. It's a sort of a family unit that's not a member of the family unit that's not going to be there anymore. And we're going to have more types of families. We already do. There are single moms, there are mom and moms, dads and dads, grandparents, aunts, uncles. The family structure is really changing. Gender identity. This one is moving the fastest. From my notes, it's probably about 2010 when it really started taking shape. If you're in a higher ed institution now, you may have on the bottom of your emails the personal pronouns you prefer to signal your gender identity. If you take the tube in London right now, their subway, metro, whatever, they used to say, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. 2016, 17, they started saying, good morning, everyone. So we're going from fixed and binary to gender fluid. Education, we had a long, if you got a degree at all, it was a single dose. And now it's continuous learning. Consent and power. Sexual harassment was permissible. I mean, they joked about it on Mad Men. It was just part of the culture. The Me Too and Time's Up movement is reshaping. It's reshaping politics right now in Virginia. It's reshaping the media industry. So 200, I think, people have been removed, both males and females, mostly males, but both males and females. Occupation used to be a fixed employee identity. Now we have to think differently. You know, is it a portfolio of self-expression? Seems a little flowery, but how do we think about our work when it's not one single job identity? Leadership and authority. White males, you guys had a great run. But it's changing. It's changing. If you saw those white suits in the State of the Union, we're having a real different type of leadership, both in gender and in racial profile. Expertise was earned and credentialed. I'm not standing in front of you because of any book I wrote, any company I work for, or any degree I have. It's because I started explaining stuff, and it went out on social media. I crossed paths with Thomas Friedman, which was just luck. And now this is all I do. And it was because I've developed a personal brand and I've developed a network. And more people are going to work this way. Human relationships, they've long been face-to-face. Increasingly, they're online. That's how people meet. Most people meet their mates that way, their spouses, their partners, online. Most of us form our relationships that way. Most of us find our work that way. And then our populations, as I mentioned, used to be countries, now they're social media platforms. So if you look at that list, and it's an abridged list, the first 5 dimensions are really about who we are and how we define ourselves. The next 4 or 5 are about what we do and how we express ourselves. And the last 2 are about where we're from or how we connect and create community. And so these changes are really happening, and I don't think we have enough empathy for what it's like for some people who now feel left out, while other people now feel included. So what does this mean to work? The era where anything mentally routine or predictable soon will be able to be achieved by an algorithm. And that's a whole lot of work. The Frey Osborne, which is the famed model, says it's maybe half of the work in the United States right now. There are other models that say it's even more. And then the whole concept of education being codifying and transferring skills. So if you want to be this profession, well, here are the things you need to know. Here are the 4 years, 2 years, 3 years you need to sit through to get those skills, and then you're fine. That doesn't work anymore. So we're entering the 4th industrial revolution. The first one was steam. The second one was mechanization of labor and electricity. The third was computerization and labor automation. And the fourth is artificial intelligence and cyber-physical, which is really the Internet of Things, where it's where everything around you has some intelligence in it. Mickey McManus from Autodesk says this is when things wake up. There's sort of a creepy way of thinking about it, but I think that's fairly accurate. I think it's important to think about the difference between the third and the fourth industrial revolution, because in some ways we're in the middle of them. Some industries are squarely in the third, some are in the fourth. So in the third industrial revolution, the technological innovation was computerization and automation of labor. In the fourth, it's the merging of digital, biological, and physical systems. That's just internet going into everything. The vocational displacement in the third industrial revolution was routine manual labor. You guys know that in Detroit, we lost 5 million manufacturing jobs. In the fourth, it's going to be routine cognitive labor, and that's going to happen even more quickly because the software that can replace the human can scale a whole lot faster than those fixed robots. Your competitive advantage in the third industrial revolution was your specific expertise and your stored knowledge. In the fourth, it's going to be, I believe, your identity, your mindset, and your enablers, your ability to learn and adapt. Education and training in the third industrial revolution was a factory pipeline of work. So it was get good grades, get into a good school, get a first job, get in a good company, get on that escalator. Now it's lifelong learning and adaptation. And then the way we use tools in the third industrial revolution were tools of production to extract value. So you had to learn that software package in order to use it to be more productive. In the fourth, it's going to be tools of value creation. So you're going to use tools that help you understand gaining insights from data. You're going to learn with the tool and you're going to learn from the tool. So the third industrial revolution, I say, is learn to work. The fourth is work to learn. And we're in the middle right now. And that's causing a lot of tension in terms of what you do as an educational institution. So everybody sort of is lunging at, we just got to get more STEM graduates. That's going to solve all our problems. And I think what's really interesting is this work by David Deming at Harvard, who has looked at STEM skills are really programs that are with high math skills. And he said, you know, let's look back, in his case, to the 80s and say, okay, where has work changed? So if you had low math skills and you had low social skills, those jobs have been on the decline. That's not surprising. And if you had high math skills and high social skills, those jobs have really been increasing and we can't even fill them at the moment. Also not surprising. But if you had high math skills and low social skills, those are actually have been on the decline since the 80s, and we haven't really paid attention to that. But what's actually growing is even if you have low math skills and you have high social skills, those jobs have been increasing, but we're not doing anything to develop those social skills, those enablers, soft skills if you must. Another thing that's happening is we're not preparing people for this change. And I think it connects to the identity crisis. But a study of studies, so it's a series of studies that is the only people I know looking at this who've said that the loss of a job can take twice as long to recover from as the loss of a primary relationship. And for some people, they never fully bounce back. So my question is, where are we teaching people to learn and adapt? Are we talking about job loss at any age in school, at any point in the workforce? Are we talking about how you learn and adapt? That losing your job isn't losing yourself, how you reformulate, how you create new value after a position. We're not doing that right now. I think it's a really important thing we start doing. And then I have a personal mission, and it's to get rid of these 3 questions. What do you want to be when you grow up? It's absurd. Bureau of Labor Statistics said in '99 that 65% of the jobs haven't been created yet. I've heard since then the number's even higher. So we're asking a little kid to think about what they want to be based upon a limited amount of experience they have. Then we get myopic about picking a good major, an area of study. Research from the Federal Reserve Bank in New York says that 27% of people ever work in the field of their undergraduate major. So think about it. We tell people to get good grades. We push them into something because we think it's going to be a high-paying job, whether or not they're interested in it. We ask them to pick that major before they get to university or college or whatever. Tell them never to take anything outside of it because they really got to focus. That job may not be there, or they may never work in it. What are we doing? That's educational malpractice. And then we ask each other, what do we do? It's the first thing we ask each other. Is that really the most important information? But we're socialized to do it. And for people who've been displaced or in the process of changing jobs, it's a crisis. They avoid social situations and they become further isolated. The best research I've seen on this is from the Foundation for Young Australians that says that young people graduating today We'll have upwards of 17 jobs across 5 different industries. And that's not just Australia. Their research covers the entire developed world, so that's true for us as well. So education, what are we really doing? So if we think about education and we think about the process of learning and say, okay, there's a continuum, there's divergent learning, learning to ask a lot of questions, and convergent learning, getting the right answer. Then we have social emotional intelligence, and we have cognitive intelligence. Kindergarten and Montessori school starts out there with high social emotional intelligence, high discovery, high inquiry. Then high school, higher ed, whatever higher ed means for you. What's your convergent intelligence? Because that's the only thing we're going to measure. What are you going to do with your life? And then our workforce development skills gaps are here. So this is a myopic focus on what, leaving why entirely behind and not even really addressing the hows and whys. I put this kid up there. I didn't put my own picture up there because I don't know if my mother still has one, but this was me. When did this single grade or single series of grades in any subject, which tends to be math lately, determine your future? Why are we doing that? There's a great TED Talk, I can't remember this woman's name, but she says we got to stop saying no or failure and say not yet. Everybody's got we're all continuing to become, we're all continuing to learn and adapt. I like this quote from Marina Gorvis from the Institute of the Future. The Institute of the Future is a think tank out in Palo Alto. They just celebrated their 50th year of trying to help companies think about the future. Marina says, as soon as we close the digital divide, we stop our obsession about digital skills, the next one that's going to open is the motivational divide. Because those who are going to thrive are going to be the ones who can learn and adapt. And I think the only way you can learn and adapt is if we light that motivational fire. What are you interested in? Because I can't manufacture motivation for anybody, neither can you. So my work to learn thesis, I think it's like an iceberg, and I think we're looking at it all wrong. So if you think about an iceberg, the top of it, I think, is the skills to do. That's what we're lunging at. What can you do? What's your major? What did you study? Who are you? Below that is the enablers, which I think we're mostly missing. They're at the those are the uniquely human skills. Below that is a mindset. I call it an agile learning mindset. Call it whatever you want to. The ability to learn and adapt, understanding how you learn. And then below that is your identity, which has got to be resilient and adaptive. So one of the concepts that I hear repeatedly, particularly in higher ed, it's a change management thing from corporate called, we just got to realize we're on a burning platform. We've got to create the burning platform. It's this idea that that's going to be the impediments to change, burning platform. And it's interesting because this idea came from a tragic accident. In 1988, in the North Sea, an oil rig worker woke up. His whole room was on fire. Platform was on fire. He made a split-second decision and jumped 15 stories into the ocean, knowing that he only had 20 minutes to live because the ocean was so cold. And he was one of the 63 people who survived, and they said to him, "Why'd you jump?" And he said, "I'd rather fry than die." And they said, well, the reporter who covered it said, "Oh, I guess he really was saying I'd rather have probable death than certain death." And this is the model we're using to inspire change. I think our lunging at skill sets and our really, I just came from a conference down in DC with some political folks who were saying, okay, what are the disruptors and what are the skills we need to codify and transfer into people? I'm like, you're just creating another burning platform. And here I refer to Peter Sheehan is a great thought leader I'm starting to learn from, and he says, the burning platform is all about trying to motivate people with fear. It's a terrible idea. What we need to do instead is light the fire of burning ambition. Let's stop leading with fear and start leading with inspiration. So I have this concept of the agile learning mindset, and I've developed into a curriculum at one university and done a bunch of workshops on it. And it's basically like, what is the real 21st century set of common skills everybody needs to have, or that compass? And I think it starts with agency. How do you get somebody to understand that learning is their responsibility, understand what motivates them so they have that fire to propel themselves? Then, how do you develop learning agility? How do you develop the ability to learn and adapt? How do you understand how you learn? We used to only need to understand how we learn to get through school. Now if we're going to learn for life, we have to understand a lot more about how we learn. Then it's adaptability. How do you deal with unstructured problems or ambiguous situations? A lot of people are uncomfortable with that. We have to become much more comfortable with that. And then the fourth piece of it is awareness. So you can be driven by purpose and passion and learn anything you want, but the reality is we live in a society that has a market that's got to pay for what you do so you can pay for yourself. So it's a self-awareness and a market awareness. So you have to understand how you create value, and you have to understand the organization you work with, how they create value, and how those two things connect. So seems like everybody's got their top 10 list of future skills. Here I just highlight two. One's by the Institute of the Future of Work. The other one's by the World Economic Forum. Institute of the Future of Work, which is that 50-year-old think tank, says it's social intelligence, sense-making, novel and adaptive thinking, design mindset, cognitive load management, computational thinking, transdisciplinarity, virtual collaboration, cross-cultural competency, and new media literacy. World Economic Forum has a similar list. We're not going to read it. It's almost the same. The Institute of the Future of Work, there is a group working on trying to figure out how to develop these skills. That's the Future Work Skills Academy. And they cluster them like this, or I cluster them like this. I think the first set of them is human-to-human interface. If the machines can do everything mentally routine and predictable, how do we get better at working with each other? The next set is human operating skills. If the machines can do everything mentally routine and predictable, how do we navigate in that? How do we operate as humans? And then the last piece of it is, how do we navigate in this new world? And I call them the human navigation skills. I don't think we have enough people working on this. The Future Work Skills Academy is looking at it. They're one of the first groups looking at it. I think that's really exciting. So if we look back at that iceberg, and we rethink it, I think you start with identity. You've got to create really resilient and adaptive identities. And we have to do this from a young age with young kids. Also have to do with our existing workforce. How adaptive and resilient is our existing workforce? If your business model changed, how many of your workers could adapt? Mindset. How much do you talk about learning? Learning takes place in work all the time. Work is learning. How often do you acknowledge it? How often do you reinforce it? How often do you recognize it? And then the enablers, the uniquely human skills. I talk to executives all the time who tell me that the greatest skills gaps they have are rarely technical. They're mostly behavioral, but nobody knows how to talk about it. Nobody knows how to do interventions around it. Nobody knows how to do behavioral training, because that's what these enablers are, is really behavioral stuff, and it's really hard. Think about your own primary relationship. Let's face it, that's the only place we really work on our own behavior, and it's not easy. Who likes feedback at home? I don't. Skills to do. These are the skills for which you're hired. We will have many of those. We have to set up the expectation that we're going to learn and adapt. So to summarize this and to prepare ourselves for the panel, I think the world used to look like this. We had the education bucket, the work bucket, the retirement bucket, and we sort of moved through it like that. We were productive in our work lives. And then this idea has emerged that, okay, we're, to some degree to acknowledge we're working longer, we created this sort of little reskilling moment. It looks like a camel that we move through it. And I call it the faulty logic model, because I don't think it makes any sense. It doesn't acknowledge identity, it doesn't acknowledge learning, and it sets up the expectation that that one dose is going to be okay for the rest of your life. What I think is the buckets turn on their side, and we move through them like that. And for many of you guys in the room who are in industry or in community colleges are uniquely set up to be that solution for any age group. So I think we're also coming out of this value you bring mindset. And the value you bring mindset is a CV or a resume mindset. I got my job because of the things I did or because of the degree I have. I'm credentialed as if that's some sort of insulation. I'm valued for my past experiences. Not that they're not important, but what have you done for me lately? And you're valued on what you know and what answers you can provide, and often to known problems. And I think we need to move into a value that you create mindset, which is an entrepreneurial mindset. What value are you creating today? How are you continuously learning? Having a bit of a beginner's mindset, being able to say, I don't know, let's find out. Learning becomes more important than knowing, and really good questions based on insights are better than answers to old problems, because those questions are probably not even relevant anymore. So we used to look at a career like you're on a sailboat and you've got a journey you got to get to, so just stay the course, don't get distracted, don't take anything outside your major. And now it's more like this, ride the wave. And I use this picture because it's actually from the Guinness Book of World Records from 2015. It's the most people ever on a surfboard in Long Beach, California, because you're not going to be on that surfboard alone. Most of work is social, and most of work is working with others. So think about the rave you're on, when it's going to crash, how you're going to get on the next one, and it sets up that expectation. So I heard somebody say recently, we got to think about education as from cradle to career. I want to correct that. I think it's before cradle. I think it's talking to parents before they have kids about what they're going to think about their kids. And it's not to career, it's through career. And I think that's a shift that actually positions really well for community colleges. So my summary again is future work is learning and adapting. And it's about learning faster than your competition as individuals and as organizations. And it's not just about technical skills. It's about learning over knowing. It's about constantly learning. And with all this stuff about technology taking our jobs, I think humans are dramatically underrated. I'm really optimistic about humans, but we have to make some of these shifts in how we think about ourselves. And I think that has to do with thinking about identity first, mindset, enablers, and then the skill sets. And with that, I hope that's the right context to set us up for a panel discussion. And I want to thank you very much for your attention.
We're so glad you're high on humans. It's a good sign for all of us. But thank you, Heather, for your provocative comments, and I know that's going to stimulate a lot of conversation as we think forward together about the future of work and learning, not only here at Schoolcraft, but throughout our nation and our world. As a reminder to our in-house audience, now's the time to pass your questions to your table host, and for the table host to bring those forward if there are any. And we'll answer as many as time allows in the next 30 minutes. But if we could have our panelists begin to join us here on stage, that would be great. As I introduce you, while you're all gathering. And it's my pleasure to introduce these panelists because they represent manufacturing, cybersecurity, education, and healthcare, all sectors of our economy that are obviously going to have to work collaboratively on workforce solutions. And the panelists will also be joined by Heather McGowan. Yeah, table hosts, if you can bring your questions forward, that would be terrific at this point in time. So not necessarily in any order other than alphabetical, let me introduce our panelists to you right now. And as I introduce you, if you hear your name, will you wave at the audience so they know who's who? First of all, we'll start with Chuck Dardis. There he is.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Applause.
Chuck is president and CEO of Alpha USA, a Tier 1 and Tier 2 automotive supplier. Alpha is a family-owned Michigan business and has been in business now for 52 years. Whether it's in securing armament for the U.S. military, producing equipment for the medical field, or strengthening roadway bridges, Alpha's products are intertwined through a variety of industries across the globe. Most recently, Chuck started the Young Inventors program for area middle school students, encouraging them to become innovative entrepreneurs. Chuck. Michael Davenport. Oh, you're all in a row. This is perfect. Is president and principal security consultant for Trilogy Security Incorporated, a cyber security risk assessment and advisor to a variety of domestic and international organizations. He has more than a 25-year cybersecurity professional history in such areas as forensic, risk management, and penetration testing, otherwise known as ethical hacking. You learn something new every day. Michael is a frequent speaker on cybersecurity issues, and he's also a member of the Schoolcraft College Foundation Board. So welcome, Michael. Okay, Kimberly Keaton-Williams is Vice President of Talent Acquisition and Development at McLaren Healthcare. where she's responsible for recruitment, strategies, and leadership development across the McLaren system. Prior to joining McLaren, Kim was Vice President of Technical Workforce Solutions at Tata Technologies, a global leader in manufacturing engineering services outsourcing. She has a passion for developing leaders and serving the community, including the Rhonda Walker Foundation, an organization dedicated to empowering inner-city teen girls. And Robert Ledley. He's the Dean of Occupational Programs and Economic Development here at Schoolcraft, overseeing programs ranging from culinary arts and nursing to public safety and engineering technology. He's also responsible for Schoolcraft's Business Development Center and the Continuing Education and Professional Development Department. Prior to Schoolcraft, Robert worked in biomedical R&D and is a co-inventor of 2 patents. So tuck that in your well-known facts now. And welcome back to Kim. Thank you. So, my first question to the panel, and if the moderator gets the first question, so, is based on what we have just heard, what really sticks in your minds about the key messages? In other words, what's going to keep you awake at night, or perhaps give you savage relish to get up in the morning and go get them? So, who'd like to start?
Well, I think it's the entrepreneurial spirit and also the motivation of employees versus fixed learning, like Heather was talking about, encouraging people to continue to expand their horizons, and that this is a continuous journey throughout our career. It isn't something that's defined by something we did early in school and the grades we got. I agree with that completely. I thought it was a great comment to make.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I think it's the continuous learning. In cybersecurity and other fields, one of the first things we ask individuals is, how do you learn? How do you change? You know, we run into a lot of risk in organizations where they're relying upon one resource, their IT guy or somebody, and it may not always be the best source. So we ask them, do you crowdsource that knowledge to understand what your risks are? How do you learn? How do you adapt? And how does your organization adapt to compete and to secure your environment? So, like Heather was mentioning, it's a continuous learning process. We don't care so much about what technology you know. A lot of individuals say, oh, what do I need to learn? We ask them, how do you learn? How do you leverage all the various sources of inputs, YouTube, social media, or their specific career path on a daily basis? And how do you incorporate that into your learning every day? Soft skills or power skills, I like to call them. I agree with Heather, as she mentioned. Call them power skills is critical. We can teach anybody a technology, but the aptitude and the motivation to want to learn and how you learn is critical.
Okay, thank you.
I think for me, the agile learning mindset was a great concept, and the thought of being comfortable or getting comfortable being uncomfortable. I look at my career, and I am for the first time in healthcare and for the first time in human resources. And so I am very uncomfortable and loving every minute of the journey. The second piece, Michael, you touched on it, those power skills or behavioral skills that Heather mentioned, they are absolutely critical. In the healthcare field, we have obviously some of the most brilliant mindsets who are performing amazing miracles every day on our patients, but one of the things that we are really enforcing is the importance of those skills of collaboration and communication that make a huge impact on the outcomes of our patients. And even at our very senior leadership levels, probably the most difficult piece now that they've achieved that level in their career is really the behavioral and the leadership skills that can make or break them in their career.
I think for me it was, there's a combination of things. There's a personal side to this that, when our parents' generation, they had one job sometimes in the same company for their whole life, and that's changed dramatically. I think there's a change that you're going to have now 7 jobs, different jobs in your life, and now Now I think it's turned into 7 careers, 7 different careers. And I'm on my 6th career now, so that kind of hit me personally in that respect, because I had to continually learn. The other part of it is kind of from the education standpoint, where you talked about that transition from credentials to that continuous learning, that credentials maybe aren't as important, because we're being pushed to provide evidence that we're getting credentials, right? And that credentials are important in terms of getting certain jobs, and yet the transferable skills are probably the more important thing. So how do we transition from that? How do we kind of cover both those areas?
Okay, thank you, Robert. Now, a different question here.
Okay.
She's got to be an optimist because she's a futurist, right? So, what is it that you're feeling most optimistic about as we sit here today and you've just given us a glimpse of what that 4th revolution is going to be?
I think I'm most optimistic about, I want to make sure you can hear me, because I heard some of you guys couldn't hear me in the back before. I think I'm most optimistic about what we've done lately. What's often missed in our view, particularly in the United States, is how many strides we've made in, okay, I'm 47, I'll be 48 soon. In my lifetime, we've lifted 1 billion people out of poverty. In my lifetime, we've dramatically reduced poverty, and we've dramatically increased literacy. And in the short period of time, we've had this thing called the internet, which is 25, maybe 28 years now. We just connected more than half the globe. If we can do that, there's nothing we can't do. It's just a matter of getting our priorities right. And it's a real shift in how we think about ourselves and how we think about learning and how we think about what we do. But we're really moving into an area of incredible abundance. And I think it's just a matter of how we share that abundance. So I can't help but be optimistic.
Great, I love that. Okay, here's a really great question, and I will open it up to the first panelist who'd like to leap up and talk about this one. As a parent of a 15-year-old who is struggling in school, how should I look at coaching him differently?
Okay, I'll leap. So I have a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old, and I have been telling my children to really think about where their passion is, what they enjoy. And I think one of the things I learned probably only about 10 years ago was after attending a workshop of playing to your strengths. I don't know if you all have ever attended like a Marcus Buckingham presentation, but I used to always approach things of where my gap was and always trying to spend time closing those gaps. But what I learned at that presentation was you get a much better return on investment of your time when you focus on your strengths. And so what I tell my kids is, what is it that gives you that excitement and that passion? There's something you can do with that is going to bring you joy. And I remember my mom telling me years ago when I decided to switch from engineering into business, and I just was so heartbroken about, oh, I'm not supposed to make that switch because I said I was gonna do this and I just gotta go do this master's degree now. And she said, do what you love and the money will come. And so that's what I would probably tell your 15-year-old. See what they enjoy. I support everything my kids want to try, and I give them so much energy and passion behind it so that they can fully explore it, and then I also give them room to move and evolve as they learn more.
Great, thank you, Kimberly. I was having this conversation with my 5-year-old granddaughter the other day, and not asking what do you want to be when you grow up, so whew. But what do you really enjoy? And she says, well, I'm not sure, but I think when I grow up, I want to retire. We have some work to do. Okay, here's the question from the workplace perspective. How do you speak to management who may be resistant to the new way of work to learn thinking?
I think that's a good question. I'll try it. I'll take
Okay.
a stab at it.
Go for it.
Again, I take it from my perspective as being a cybersecurity professional and trying to communicate risk to an organization, to a management team that may not be so enthusiastic about the change. The way we communicate it to management is how does it impact, correlated back to how it impacts their business and how it impacts the bottom line, or find out what it is that's important to the CEO or to the management team, and then correlate the impact of workforce or the lack of education or change to how it impacts that, their bottom line, their profit, their efficiency, and connect the dots. It's the whole people formula. What is it that is important to you? What is the issue that we're bringing at hand, which is education and workforce development? Correlate it back to, okay, this is how it impacts your business. That's what I do with cybersecurity risk. They don't understand some of the vulnerabilities, technical vulnerabilities, everybody receiving email phishing and all the rest of that. They say, oh, that's not that important. Well, show the impact. Tell them about how it impacts other organizations, the $200 million breach against Target, or whatever. So how does the workforce cause inefficiency that creates a detriment to their business and their profitability? That's what's important to them, whatever it may be.
Okay. This next question I'm going to ask first of Chuck, and then maybe Robert would like to jump in. In terms of skilled trades, how can the community college and business work together to solve the gaps?
I think that the community college level, especially Schoolcraft, does a great job of that. But it's the collaboration of us. By us, I mean the Livonia Public Schools, the school systems, Schoolcraft College, and the business community, us getting to know each other. I think it's really important that we are friends and that we know each other and we know what our capabilities are. And I think that's a huge gap that needs to be filled in all of our communities. I know that the school district has its own criteria. They have things that they have to do, things they have to accomplish because of state mandates or national mandates. I know that Schoolcraft has their particular curriculum. But us working together, I think that we have found a lot of success. By we, I mean the business community in Livonia, by finding ways to get to know each other. I think it's so vital, and I think that we've worked really hard at doing that. So the bridge that we have to have is that we know what's going on in the schools know what's going on in our business. Schoolcraft knows what's going on in our business. Schoolcraft knows what's going on in Livonia Public Schools, Clarenceville, Wayne Westland. So that's what I see, is that we have to get to know each other and get to work together.
Mm-hmm. Robert?
Yeah, I agree, and Chuck's company's been a great partner for us. I think there's a couple things. There's an acute need in the workforce as far as the skills gap, and I think we're partnering with companies right now, and we'd like to do that more. The state funded us for a Going Pro pre-apprenticeship readiness program that the funding stopped. Actually, this semester the funding is stopped for that, but we hoped that was going to be a program where it would be able to be continued, where students would be able to take 4 classes. Hopefully now they would be funded through company partnerships to take those 4 classes, almost like a pre-apprenticeship, and then move into an apprenticeship program. We serviced over 50 students in that program over a 9 to 12 month period, and we put, I think, 7 to 10 people into registered apprenticeship programs. So that's a great way of partnering for acute needs. So the work to learn to work type of environment there. I think the long-term needs are being addressed. You talked about doing the things that you enjoy. I think Mike Rowe is the dirty jobs guy. He talks about in a TED Talk. He talks about it's not really every young man that you probably talk to wants to be a professional athlete. Is that realistic? They may have a great passion for it, but they may not be good enough to do it. So what is it that they're good at? I mean, that was kind of his premise. What are you good at? Find what you're good at. But a lot of times they don't have exposure to all these different things, and I think that's what these partnerships with companies have with the young inventors, the manufacturing day, where they get exposure to a lot of different areas that they may not have exposure to. So I think that's important for the partnerships too.
And I don't think you can be afraid, like in our business, we're not afraid to let people pursue education that they want that's maybe non-traditional. Like we've worked with Schoolcraft to define certificate programs for our employees. If you want to do these particular things, this is the definition of that. But I don't think, I can't think of any time we've turned down somebody that had some other avenue that they wanted to pursue and help them with it. When you look at how broad-based our educational reimbursement program is and how we don't have any fear of letting them to follow other paths, I think a lot of people should take that into consideration and don't be afraid to let people want to get educated in things other than what maybe you think they should do.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Okay, this is for Heather, and speaks to the motivational divide. You mentioned in your talk agency, adaptability, agility, and awareness, and having that fire in the belly. How do we teach that, and where do we teach it? Whose responsibility is that?
I think it's all of our responsibilities, and I don't know that it's something you can teach. You can just expose them to as many things as possible. Try everything. Try everything, and it doesn't matter if you fail. Because failure is just a step on the process of learning. So this whole idea that you've got to sort of lock into something at the age of 4 or 5 or 18 is absurd. I mean, most of the people in this room are, I would say, you guys are over to 20? So how many, are you doing what you learned are you doing what you said you would do when somebody asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up when you were younger? Are you doing what you studied in education? How did you find your way to doing what you're doing now? Chances are good it was a happy accident. In order to create more happy accidents, we have to have more exposure to stuff. More internships, more experiments, more part-time jobs, more random classes. Less of an emphasis on majors of study, especially early on, and more experimentation. And I think all of us, ask young people around you, what are you doing? What are you interested in? What do you, one of the things I tell when I speak to executive groups is, look at your day. Do a journal every day for a couple of weeks and write down all the things you did that day. And note next to them the things you avoided and did last because you didn't want to do them. Note the things you woke up thinking about. Note the things that gave you more energy. Note the things that really exhausted you. And when you start drawing a circle around the things that excited you, start going more in that direction.
Okay, thank you. Good advice. So this one will be for Kimberly, okay? And along the same line, so how do educational institutions, if it is those of us who are involved in higher education or K-12, prepare graduating students to be successful with the human and social skills that Heather has described?
Wow. That piece is just so absolutely important for no matter what job that you are going into, that you have skills. I think you talked about it, Heather, those social skills, the ability to collaborate, the ability to work in teams, the ability to leverage diverse thinking. I will tell you that those skills are still missing in a great degree in the workplace. And I will say candidly, because I would say this to my team, we're talking about it now at McLaren, that in healthcare, often we're kind of behind in understanding the importance of those leadership skills, those interpersonal skills, because we're such a technically based organization with healthcare. But to the extent that educational institutions can help kids understand the importance of working in teams and the importance of collaboration, I think is critical. I wonder, even for my kids who are so used to, texting and being kind of behind the scenes, and I know that a lot of things we do now is, are remote, and so, that's natural to expect that, but there are still certain complex solutions that require, face-to-face interactions and collaborations and emotional intelligence that I think often we're missing. And I've seen data that shows that emotional intelligence is the piece that really predicts your success over IQ. And so I don't know to what degree, because I've been out of school just a couple years now, and I don't know. But
you're still learning.
I'm still learning,
Absolutely.
absolutely. But I don't know to what degree that's talked about in schools, but it's absolutely critical for success no matter what profession your students choose.
Yeah, I think that, just to add to that real quick,
Good.
that we are the average of the 5 people we hold closest to us, right? And when we're choosing a hobby, or when it's our children, I have a 16-year-old and 18-year-old as well, and it's who do they surround. I always ask them, who do you surround yourself around, right? Are they bringing you up, or are you bringing them down? On the adult factor, if you're choosing a new career, or you're changing patterns, or trying to improve your social or power skills or such, are you surrounding yourselves with those individuals or that group, whether it's a hobby or profession or whatever, that's going to take you there that is smarter than you, that may be more exposed. That's how you change. That's how you, you know, like Heather mentioned, some things you can't change from certain people, motivation, that fire. But if you try and think outside the box or realize that there isn't a box, and surround yourself with those type of individuals, you will be surprised. That surfboard analogy that Heather had, everybody wanted to be on that surfboard and they're fired up. What's that for your children? What's that for you to create that same environment to bring you to that level? They probably never imagined they'd be sitting on a big surfboard in the middle of the ocean with a bunch of people that are like-minded. So,
Safety in numbers. Okay, Heather, here's a quick and easy one for you. What is your must-read Thomas Friedman book? Or which ones are?
Well, I think the World is Flat is certainly a seminal one. That certainly got him on the path. I do think his latest one, Thank You for Being Late, An Optimist's Guide of Thriving in the Age of Accelerations, is really comprehensive and really good, particularly if you buy the paperback version, because that's the one in which he mentions me.
Just saying.
That was a nice tee up, thanks.
Good. Okay, this one's for Chuck specifically. The Young Inventors Program, what's your 60-second, what is it all about, and how can we climb on board?
It's encouraging everybody to bring forth their ideas. There are no bad ideas. It's focused though at the middle school level. So we want to attract younger people to think and to bring forth their ideas and get excited about it. And I think that the school system's done a great job in helping us with that. But it's just about, you've got creative minds, bring the idea forward and tell us about it, and we'll see how you do compared to your peers, and then we bring you to a nice banquet here at Schoolcraft College.
Great.
35 students this last time. We talked to 816 kids this last year over 7 schools.
Okay, great initiative.
Thanks to Schoolcraft and the LPS in Clarenceville.
Super. Okay, this one's for Robert. Education is often equated with schools, but the learning opportunity gap is so much larger. How do we reframe education, as in education does not always equal school?
It's an interesting way to put it.
That's a deep thought.
Yeah, it is. So I think a lot of it is the experiential learning component. So we really try to work with partners to get internship opportunities, to get work opportunities. We have a lot of simulation laboratories here, so we bring the work world here. We try to make it as relevant as possible. I think that's part of what we try to do at the community college level, especially at Schoolcraft. And I think that's probably the best way I can answer that question, just the virtual simulation that we have here and the partnerships that we have with companies in terms of internships and any type of experiential learning that we can provide. Mm-hmm. That's important. They have to understand the real work.
Okay, so I'll open this to all, since this will be our last formal question. You mentioned the need to teach people to adapt. What ideas do any of you have to help us accomplish this?
So I'll give a thought. Being new, 10 months into the healthcare industry, and on the job description it said healthcare industry experience preferred. So I almost didn't even apply for the job because I thought, well, clearly I don't have healthcare experience. I decided to apply anyway because I looked at the job description about the talent acquisition, and I thought, you know, I've got skills in that area and I can bring a new way of thinking about talent to the healthcare organization. So I applied, and fortunately I had a boss who understood the importance of diversity of thought. So what I would say is look at how you can learn more about your organization in a broader perspective. That's what I would tell a new person coming in, because I think that creates your openness to adaptability. So for example, I work in human resources now. I did a job shadow day with our chief nursing officer at one of our hospitals. I have no interest in becoming a chief nursing officer, but I can tell you that the day I spent at the hospital shadowing her influenced how I think about my job. I plan to next do a job shadow day with one of our chief financial officers. have no aspirations to be a CFO, but by understanding the financial metrics that she's looking at, it will help me better understand the business and help me think about my job. I plan to job shadow one of our CEOs. I sat in on one of our senior medical leadership meetings just last week and learned about some of the future technology we're looking at for our patients. So I think part of adaptability is that continuous learning, and you can get that even once you're in a company. Even if you're not out taking a formal class, go and see what other people are doing in the organization and understand how what you do fits in the larger picture. I really believe in that. Don't look at your job just as your job description, but look at it as part of a whole, and you will make much better decisions, and you will be much more adaptable and flexible.
Great. Other advice?
I think that's great advice. I think throughout my career, it's always, there's the job, and you certainly want to focus on that, but then there's also, what are you doing for your career, and how are you building your transferable skills? And I think that's something that people really have to focus on and really be intent on it, because you do, you get into the grind. I mean, as a research scientist, I was very kind of pigeonholed into one specific area of research, and when I left, and when I worked at Pfizer, and when they closed, it kind of opened up a whole new, many new arenas for me to explore, and I realized that I hadn't tapped all my potential in that job. So I think it's important to understand and maybe be, free yourself a little bit in terms of your identity. It's just not the job. It's what you're capable of doing.
Yeah, I like the idea of not having any fear to adapt to. I think of the orthopedic surgeon that did my knee surgery. So he started out with a BSME, so he's a mechanical engineer, and he goes, I can adapt all this to orthopedic surgery. So he did. So he became an orthopedic surgeon. And when he was working on me, he says, a buddy of mine decided to take the LSAT because he wants to go back to law school. And I helped him with it. And he said, I'm going to do that too. So he's got a BSME, he's an orthopedic surgeon, and now he's going to become a lawyer, kind of like my friend Jim Flossone, who's an engineer and an attorney. And so, but I like that fearlessness. Like when I talk to kids in high school, I think about, it's the Here to There program. You tell them what you were doing when you were their age and where you are now. And I walk through all the stuff I've done in my career, and I said, I never really defined myself. And I tell them, don't ever define yourself. You're always going to find something else new to do. Do it. Don't be afraid to do it. And make mistakes. I encourage you to make mistakes. Just don't make fatal ones.
I think it's, I don't know if it's teachable. I think it's more of habit and consistency. I look at those little postings on the internet all the time. Success is about consistency, habit, right? It's working in situational awareness, just like military or anything else, where you have a disciplined habit of doing situational awareness and to adapt as a constant habit every day. Where am I right now? What do I need to know? Or when you're in a meeting, like Kim was mentioning, or whatever, what did you learn? Are you doing competitive analysis if you're a business constantly as a habit, as a routine, right? And then adapting, working in adaptation into habits every day, and then applying them, just making it routine. If you're just winging it, then that's the results you're going to get, winging it results. So.
Great advice. Final words?
Yeah, I think what's at the root of fear of change and resistance to adaptability is really fear. So think about what scares you the most and go do it.
I agree.
And I took a year of training at...
That's scary.
I took a year of training in improv at Second City. I even took a belly dancing class. I mean, it may take you to weird places, but do what scares you. Because once you work through that, you can do anything.
She's working on her 17 careers.
Yeah.
Great. Let's have a round of applause for our panelists. Okay, the panel is going to remain seated, but I'd now like to invite Lynn Coburn to the podium. Lynn. She's a member of the Schoolcraft College Foundation Board and co-chair of today's event. Lynn.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here today as a business owner, as a member of the I-275 Industrial Council. I'm here as a board member of the foundation, and co-chair. And unfortunately, my job is to tell you that we're almost coming to a conclusion. I'd like to extend a thank you, though, to Heather and our panel. In doing that, we have a little gift of appreciation, and I just want you to note that it is weather appropriate. So, thank you so much. Dr. Ludwig, thank you so much. Kim, thank you so much. Michael, thank you so much. Just one more. And Chuck,
Thank
so
you.
much.
Well, thank you.
We very much appreciate their time and talent today. And it's great to get their perspective, to get the perspectives of our experts. But now we want to turn our attention to you, our attendees. So for the next 10 minutes, what we'd like to do is get your input. So our table hosts are prepared to gather that input about what you thought about the program and the information this morning. But more importantly, I shouldn't say more, equally important, is what we should do with that information. How do we move forward? There's power behind full engagement. There's power behind collaboration. We talked about that in the panel. So I'd like to use that and hope that that's what happens here today. So before I turn you over to your table host, I would like to share that Schoolcraft College is really thrilled to host this assembly of businesses, of educators, and of community leaders to discuss the important topic of education and workforce. We hope that you better understand where Michigan's talent pool is headed and what the future of education would, should, and could look like. Community colleges like Schoolcraft are really in a unique position because they're dynamic, they're nimble, and they're flexible educational partners that can address the current gap in skills and then also help educate the future workforce. So on behalf of Schoolcraft College and the foundation, I'd like to say thank you for being a part of this really important conversation.
I hope that you enjoyed our discussion around the future of workforce and education. Some of what you heard Ms. McGowan address today may be new information, or it may seem shocking that Michigan has come to a crucial talent gap. But we're not alone. This is a problem of national proportion and must be addressed now. The good news is that we are now aware of the severity, and as a community we can develop solutions that will bring positive change today with an even stronger impact on the future. I believe I speak for the educational community when I say we are ready to partner with all businesses, universities, organizations, local and state government to provide the necessary education and training to meet the demands of the future workforce. I urge you to reach out to your local community colleges and universities to discuss how you can join their effort in addressing this issue.